Good morning, my friends. Welcome back. This is Karthik Nagarajan, your technology buddy. Today, I would want us to discuss about what are LLMs and how can we use an LLM in a Python coding, not just calling an LLM through libraries or what, instead of now using a LangChain and how to integrate the LLMs with our Python coding to make sure all our tools and sources are utilized so that our application or our platform is built as a whole LLM plus LangChain with Python libraries and Python coding to end up in a proper application, an AI application. So I wouldn't want to go deeper into the coding aspect. I just want to explain all those aspects and to bring in an architectural overview of how a programmer should implement, a Python programmer should implement using LangChain and LLM in their programming so that it brings in an end-to-end structure and also an output what they are expecting. I will clearly explain every concept, every component and how the full end-to-end flow works in a real production system. Now, by the end of this video, you will clearly understand which LLM you should use, whether a local LLM or a hosted LLM, and then where LangChain fits in, how to make AI outputs reliable using validation, how RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, works for documents, how tool calling works safely, and what kind of guardrails we need to make this production ready. Friends, if you find all my videos and the topics that I am discussing helpful and informative, please don't just view and skip and go for the next video. Please make sure you subscribe. Share this video to all your friends who are also in need of the same concepts explained and making their life easy, because I have already gone through a lot of research and have been implementing a lot of applications through which I'm bringing in this video to you as a solution for all your questions. So please share with your friends, all your friends as much as possible, and also support me, so that boosts me. Now the first aspect what we need to start with, which LLM should you use? Before even talking about the LangChain, the first decision is which LLM you want to use. Option A, local LLM. Now, what is in the local LLM? Local LLM means the AI runs on your local machine or your own server. This is good if you want data privacy or you want predictable cost. You are building an internal tool for your team. Any of these three options, if you are on, then you go for a local LLM. The downside is the quality depends on your hardware and the model you use. Option B, Cloud LLM. Cloud LLM means the AI is hosted by some provider on the internet. If you would want to choose a Cloud LLM, you should ask questions. Do you want better quality answers? Do you want a system that is highly reliable? What hardware should we use? Because you don't have to worry about any hardwares. If you don't want to invest on hardwares and be sure on the reliability and also be sure on the quality answers, as the cloud LLMs are updated on every seconds basis. So that's very key. The downside of using a cloud LLM is usage based cost and compliance. So practically what I suggest is start with a local LLM for learning and privacy and building the application or building the whole platform. Once you build it, then you can now upgrade it to a cloud LLM. Now, what is LangChain actually? What LangChain actually does? LangChain itself is not an AI. Let's understand that. LangChain is just a wiring platform or a wiring library that allows you to wire and plumb your system. You know, the plumbing system sort of, where you connect all the pipes, all the wires. So it is a connector sort of a wiring tool that allows you to now bring together all the components, what you're coding, what, which means a LangChain connects your application, the LLM, your prompts, your output validation, document retrieval, and the tool execution. All these are the wiring aspect that the LangChain helps. You organize everything through the LangChain in a very clean and reusable way. That is what LangChain is. The benefit is later you can change the AI model without rewriting the whole code. You can plug and play any of these components. The components are your application, your LLM, your prompt, your output validation, your document retrieval process, then your tools for execution. The basic LLM call is a simple mental model. So what is that simple mental model? First, your app prepares a request, that is the question plus the context. Then you send it to your LLM. The LLM sends back some output. Your backend validates that output. Then you show it in your UI or use it to trigger another action. Very important mindset which we have to keep in at this stage is LLM output is not a truth. It is just a suggestion. So your backend is completely responsible for safety and correctness. Why structured output is mandatory? Now you see, you cannot just ask LLM a plain text and get the plain text, free text output from LLM to use it for your application development. So it is very important for you to understand the input and output should be structured. While you get an output, make sure you get it in a proper structure. So many developers starts with the free text responses from AI. That is fine for demos, but in real-time application, free text is very risky. Your app needs predictable output. So we force the AI to return structured output like JSON. We define what keys should be there and what parameters should be there and what format the response should be. Then we apply schema validation. If the output is valid or invalid or missing fields, you have to identify whether it is invalid or if there is any missing fields. If no, then it is a valid in output, so you consider it and consume it. If not, either we reject it or we retry for a better output, because LLM doesn't give the same response always. Or we have to fall back to a safe response. That is the final option. This single practice converts AI from a cool demo into a reusable feature. Three main ways AI is used in real-time systems. In real production system, AI is mostly used in three modes. Mode 1, plain LLM, used for explanations, rewriting text, summarizing small inputs. Mode 2 is RAG, the Retrieval Augmented Generation. The RAG is used when AI must answer using your private content like either PDFs, policies, manuals, internal documents. Now, model 3 is tool calling. This is where a lot of application comes in. A lot of programmers are looking for these aspects. So, think about it that you have already created tools. What are these tools? Those are the functions and methods that you have already created at your backend. Now, what are you going to do with tool calling? You are going to ask your LLM for a purpose, for a reasoning. Then the LLM asks back the list of tools that you have. Then you give the list of tools. Then it now decides which tool to utilize. The tool calling is used when AI must interact with your system, like querying a database, searching files, creating report definitions, triggering workflows. A good architecture always decides which mode to use for each request. Now, let us discuss the RAG. RAG is what makes AI actually useful with your own content. There are two stages. Stage A, indexing. One-time setup with updates. You have to index. It's a very key stage. Stage A. You take your documents, you break them into chunks, you convert each chunks into embeddings, numeric fingerprints. You then store these in a vector database. Now your document becomes searchable by meaning. Stage B, retrieval and answering. When you ask a question or when a user is asking a question, your system finds the most relevant chunks from the vector database. You send only those chunks to the LLM. Then the LLM answer using this real context. So LLM is not guessing. It is answering based on your actual documents and sources. Best practice is to also show citations, sources to the users so that the users build more trust on the response that we have brought in. What is tool calling? Tool calling is the safest way to allow AI to work with your application. Very important rule. The LLM should never execute anything directly. The LLM should only request tools. Your backend should execute the tools. Here the tools are your creations in your backend. So LLM is not deciding or LLM is not executing any tools. LLM is suggesting better use tool A, B, C. because you have already created the tool mapping, and then that is now passed on to the LLM for the LLM to choose a right tool for you to for it to suggest to you use these tools, and then you execute using that tool the process. Flow is like this. Your backend sends the user's questions to the LLM. You also tell the LLM what tools are available. That is a very key thing. That is the metadata. Now, the LLM replies with the tool name and parameters. Your backend checks whether this tool is allowed for this user. That is very important. The rule-based access criteria has to be built in the system, so you don't just pick the response from the LLM, the list of tools to use, and you push that to the backend for the backend to execute. You also have to build a security layer that confirms if this tool is allowed for this particular user, or for this particular channel, or this for this particular session. It is very important that we now segregate and map it very clearly through the user security management system, that is a rule based access criteria, and through which now it has to pass. So in actual sense, if you go to any AI tools like ChatGPT or Gemini, it will now give you can now use the LLM output and then use the tools and execute. But make sure you have to build a robust rule-based access criteria that governs each and every communication. Whether the parameters are safe. Now, you see whether the tool is allowed for this user, then you check whether the parameters are safe, then your backend runs the tool if it is allowed, and then the result is sent back to the LLM. Now, the LLM explains the result in simple language. That is the natural language protocol that LLMs built the response with. So you trust the AI for reasoning. You do not trust AI for execution. The execution part is what you have created as rules and process. Very important. That is your rules and process as per the application's business requirements. LLM is just a tool for you to get suggestions and a human sort of a brain behind. The AI brain behind. How LangChain fits into this? In LangChain, all these is organized using building blocks. Now you have a chat model wrapper to connect your LLM provider, then the prompt templates to structure how you ask questions, output parsers to enforce JSON and validation, retrievers for document search and drag, tools to expose backend functions, which is your tools, chains and workflows to combine everything into a flow. This is what LangChain is. So LangChain is the orchestrator that connects everything together in a clean and reusable way. What are the production guardrails to have? To make this production ready, the whole application, you must add guardrails. Permissions, AI must never bypass rule-based access criteria. Validation, always validate AI output. Query safety, read only queries or what sort of queries? Because it is very important for you to discriminate between the read-only queries, differentiate between the read-only queries and access queries. So the query safety is very important. Consider that whether it is a read-only queries, limits, timeouts, all those to be put in place as query safety parameters. Then audit logs, record questions, tools used, data accessed. All these are to be logged properly. And rate limits and quotas. Control abuse and also cost. Caching. Avoid repeating expensive work again and again. Next guardrail is fallbacks. If the model fails, your system still works. So nothing should fail the whole output. Make sure you always keep in mind simple rule. One simple rule is AI can never answer the same way. So AI can change its answer. Our system should not change its rules. So which means anytime when you execute through this framework, your application delivers what is expected by the business rules. Now let us recap all what we discussed. User asks, backend adds identity and permission, system chooses mode, plain LLM, RAG or tool calling, very important, which we have discussed are the plain LLM, RAG and tool calling according to your requirement in your application. Then if tools, the LLM requests for relevant tools and the backend execute the tool safely. The LLM prepares the final response, backend validates the LLM's response, and then the UI shows the output. So this is a complete end-to-end architecture of using LLM with LangChain in Python. Thanks a lot, my friends. Thanks for your precious time. Now, you see, we have seen the whole framework of how to use LLMs, LangChain, along with the Python coding knowledge what you have to build a whole AI application. So if you want me to still dive deep into some concepts or any aspects, please comment in this video and I will be able to take it up from there. And please don't forget to subscribe, share and comment on this video, because this video I would want it to be helpful for a lot of our programming community, all the programmers in our community. Thank you. Thanks a lot, my friends. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.